We're in the middle of someplace in Connecticut, and I'm sitting with Jeremy Kipnis. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, in this magnificent theater. It is known as the $6 million home theater, and we've been talking with him for the last hour or so about the components, about his philosophy, his theory, what it is that he's looking to accomplish, and the word and the technology that he's trying to get out to the world to improve the enjoyment of film, the enjoyment of music, regardless of the venue, regardless of the purpose, that it just becomes everything that sound and vision are capable of being. Thank you very much for inviting us out to your home.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Now, in the course of the conversation, one of the things you had pointed out was that this has pretty much permeated your background since birth. Your father was involved in music and music production and recording and things. Plus, you got to have the benefit of the counsel of Kloss, Henry Kloss, which was like the father of so much of this type of stuff and so much of an innovator, that it was very much a natural progression for you. And you had been involved in producing albums, with the engineering albums, the technology of albums, as well as starting your own label. When was that? In
1994.
And what was the label?
Epiphany Recordings.
What would we have seen from Epiphany?
Concert-style programs with the idea that you were at the recording and there was a live audience with you, but it was contained on a CD. And so we would start with vetting a program and testing it all throughout the world and figuring out which pieces worked together and which pieces didn't, and then perform it in a location that we knew we were going to do a recording. Because it had the best acoustics, and do a live performance for free, and then come the following days without having moved anything except for the audience out of the way, and redo the concert experience as a recording. And then utilizing the capabilities of editing, be able to pick the best takes and piece it together so that the impression that you're actually listening at home or wherever to that live performance still occurs.
And you would get the feel of the hall as well as... So you'd use elements of the live performance with an audience, and then okay.
Exactly. So we recreate the feeling for the musician or musicians, and then also the ambient sensation of being at a live performance rather than a typical recording where a lot of multi-mixing goes on and frequently a lot of added room ambience to create the sonic impression that you're actually at some event.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned that you had engineered. Are there any albums that we would be familiar with that you engineered, that you produced, that...
Yes, certainly the ones that I'm very proud of, that most people would have heard, would have been those Reader's Digest reissues that David Chesky of Chesky Records put out, starting in 1989. And so those are some of the greatest orchestral recordings from the late 50s, 60s, and early 70s. They were all made on analog quarter-inch stereo tape.
Wow.
And this was under the production and engineering of Kenneth Wilkinson. So he worked for Decca and actually established a long history of how to make a recording, particularly of symphony orchestras, so that it produced the layered audiophile sonic results. Again, the "you are there" effect. And the challenge for me as the remastering engineer was to take those tapes and actually get them to digital in the early days of oversampling, so that it didn't sound like you were listening to a CD.
Right.
And those went on to...
So they had like a warm feel, a warm sound to it.
I would, try and characterize, the evolution of my understanding in engineering of sound towards less warm, cold, or in between, and more towards neutral. So the quality of each of those tapes, whether it was warm or bright or dull, was substantially what I tried to preserve, because that would have been the characteristic of the recording and the way it would have been heard.
And the original was all quarter-inch. It was quarter-inch mono?
It was all quarter-inch stereo.
Wow. So that certainly limited bandwidth, nothing that you would see today.